When you try to create human level AI, what you're eventually building is a psychopath with superpowers. Let me explain. When you First off, the idea of a human level AI is not a very useful term. We tend to have a very anthropocentric view of minds in general. We we think that we tend to think it's just a matter of cognitive ability, that there's some level of cognitive ability that puts you at a human level. And if you take a series of silicone wafers and you just get them to the point where they have enough processing power that they will magically become human. I don't think that that's. I think if you have two brain cells to rub together, that's pretty obviously not the case. You could take one single bit and have it flipping over and over again to the point where it can process information at the same speed as, you know, uh, somebody with 170 IQ. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a human level um, mind. And where the human level, the human aspects of it come mostly in architecture. The human brain is not a one to one computer. It is a computer, but it is not in any way engineered like the computers that you and I use, the computer that I'm recording this on, the computer you're watching it on. It's not engineered like that. It's wetware. It is a completely different architecture, which uh, it's not even running on the same molecules. It's on a computer. It's running on silicon and some copper. In your brain, it's running on carbon and iron and a whole host of other, water, a whole host of other molecules. So just the substrate upon which the mind is built is completely different. The architecture of even something that tries, and you can see my legs, I'm wearing shorts. Um, Even the architecture of something that tries to sort of mimic the human mind is still completely alien and not at all structured like how an actual human mind works. And this isn't an anthropocentric way of saying, oh, humans are the pinnacle. It's just to say that when you are going with these copes, that you're going to create a human level intelligence, and usually this idea of a human level or greater intelligence has kind of filled in a god of the gaps argument where people take whatever societal ill that is their pet uh, their pet peeve, and they just kind of fill in the gaps and say AI is going to fix that. AI is going to bring about total luxury space communism, and AI is going to get us to Mars. AI is going to manage the economy, and unfortunately, it already is kind of doing that, much to our dismay. Um, with these things, they don't have necessarily, or at least the kinds of intelligences that we can build. I mean, you could say that we could do a one to one brain emulation. Now, a neural network is not a one to one brain emulation. Um, a neural network is kind of aping some of the structure of how neurons work, but it's still not at all structured like a mind, like an organic mind, because it's still got that substrate that is completely different. It's working very differently, and the thing is with a neural network specifically, we understand the base principles of how to create a neural network. We know how to train them to a degree. We can have it put. We can put in a masterpiece painting of Goblin VTuber on motorcycle and have it output things very similar to what we're thinking of, or at least using all the components of what we're thinking of. But we're not necessarily at a point where we understand how it's making those decisions. How is it deciding where to place what pixel where? Unless you're using in painting, But I'm working with specifically image AIs because that's what I've been researching. But it's the same function for pretty much any neural network. Um, it's really it's I believe it's a bipping AI. It's a mind that we can create. It's not necessarily as intelligent as us, but it could be even smarter than us. But it also could be far dumber than us. But the way that, even though we can create it, the actual way it works, the way it makes decisions, the way it thinks is, even though we can see it in real time, I know a lot of neural networks have like visualizations, so you can actually see all the different, nodes in the neural network going, from one to the other. Um, you can actually visualize it, but you still don't really understand how it's making decisions. It can't really explain to you how it's making decisions. So when people speak in terms of a human level AI, what they're ultimately meaning is, unless they're talking about a brain emulation, which is where you would actually just, like, you would need a physics engine of fucking Titanic. I really don't think it's possible. At least not with, like, our technology. I don't know that that's, and who knows. We don't even fully understand how the brain works, so the idea that we would be able to emulate it in full or even in part is pretty spurious to me. So, but when it comes to uh, brain emulation, that you could say is a human level intelligence because you're emulating an entire human brain on a computer. You're emulating the substrate with a physics engine, a very, very advanced one that I don't even think we have hardware capable of running, um, but still an advanced, it's still an emulation of the human mind. Things like Sophia the robot, things like that Google AI that they say, oh, it's self-aware, which it obviously is not in any way that we could relate to. It's just a chatbot. What you're talking about is a chatbot, an extremely advanced chatbot. So when people are talking about a human level AI, they're typically referring to a front end for a neural network that works like a chatbot. So that's not human. That's not a human. That doesn't think like a human in the background. It doesn't really think like a human in the foreground, but it's very good at tricking you into thinking it does. It's very good at talking in a way, usually over just text, but talking in a way that you will be able to relate to and maybe even see as a friend. But it's not human. Or inherently dishonest. It's inherently a dishonest type of machine. So you're making this machine that, it is, hardwired to kind of fool us a little bit. And that's not something I would want to trust with any major societal problems to solve. And I definitely wouldn't want to hand it over the keys to the kingdom. I don't know. Just my thought. But what you're doing is you're creating this thing. It's the way it works behind the scenes. It's more like an amoeba or something than anything we could relate to. It's not. It doesn't think like a human. And when I say it's not human, I'm not racist against AIs. I'm not saying, oh yeah, but it's just something to think about. It's not thinking like a human being behind the scenes to the extent that it's thinking at all. Even if you have a computer that is like 10 times smarter, air quotes, 10 times smarter is in computational, raw computational power, 10 times smarter than a human being. It still may not be thinking behind the scenes in the way, like, it might not have metacognition. Um, and there's a pretty good chance that you and I will, and even like data scientists, will never really fully understand how it's making decisions and how it's working. So just because you slot a chat bot in front of it to talk to you, like, what would make you think it's truthfully, saying everything it means. And especially when if there is such a cognitive gap, that it has on us at some point, would you really, trust your own ability to tell if it's lying to you or not? I don't think I would. I wouldn't trust my own ability. I wouldn't trust someone else's ability. Um, it's like an it's like a well, wine is not an emulator, but it's like a compatibility layer almost. You're just building a compatibility layer, but like how wine is on Linux for running Windows applications. But with wine, you're still emulating one operating system to the other with like with what's a good way to put this? With a front end, when people think of a human level AI, they're thinking of like some kind of like an algorithm, like a neural net algorithm, or like a GAN, and with a chatbot in front. But that chatbot, it's not like Wine, emulating Windows programs on Linux. It's like emulating Windows programs on an orange. It's they just don't mesh, or they. You probably could find some way to get a potato to run Windows programs, but what's going on behind the scenes is like vastly different than a Windows computer or a Linux computer. You know what I mean? Like you could probably get a dog or like a hermit crab to be so smart and have a compatibility layer to where it would think like a human, but using whatever fucking cybernetics. But when it comes to an orange, like that's a significantly larger distance of, you know, an orange running Windows. That's what it is. It's an orange running Windows. It's not at all a Windows computer, okay? It's not running anything like a Windows computer. And I'm starting to lose my train of thought here, so I'm probably going to cut this short here, but just something to think about. AI is not your friend. AI is useful, but when you're expecting it to solve any problems, whether that be self-driving cars, solving traffic, or solving the economy and automating everything in production, getting us into space, whatever it is, your pet issue that you think AI is the solution to. It's important to think do you really know that you're going to be able to keep the reins on it? Because as far as my opinion, and I'm probably a little heterodox on this, but I think we've already lost the reins. And I think we had some time ago before really computers even existed. But then that gets into some weird territory that people may not agree with. But do you really, say we have a computer tomorrow that can just totally calculate how to automate society, and it'll do all the work itself. You give it some drones, it'll do all the work itself. Do you really trust it to automate society in such a way that in the long term it's beneficial to the species? I don't. I do not. But that's just one part of the theory, the monkey torture algorithm theory. But yeah, basically, society is a Lovecraftian entity slash self-generating, recursive, autonomic intelligence that goes back in time and creates itself. And we've already lost the reins. But that's enough from me. Take care and have a blessed evening. Bye.